Part 2 of his presentation, to serve building formation and recruitment. Give him a warm welcome again. Yeah, I should give him a little bit more formal.
Function F7. Keep your slide.
There we go. Thank you. I just had other people do this for me. Now we're going. That's nice. Just talk amongst yourself while I do this.
Sure, that was put in your packet. It's a wonderful exploration and description of all the locations, not just pastors, that part of the service we're working on.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sorry for the little bit of getting settled here. Thank you again for allowing me to be up here. I was supposed to have reminded you, and I forgot that the joint seminary booth was back there. I'm not even sure they're open anymore. I was supposed to do that earlier. But nevertheless, if you have people in your congregation, in your family, who you'd like to have them talk to the seminaries, it's just very easy to contact the seminary. One thing about that, though, is we are your seminaries. I work also on the Pastoral Formation Committee, the two presidents of the seminaries, and Pastor Robson, the CMO of the Synod. We have a number of assignments for the next convention dealing with ministry and such. But what I want to say about that is the two seminaries have a fantastic relationship with one another. The two presidents are working together all the time. The recruitment officers are working together all the time. Sometimes I get them together. Sometimes they're working together on their own. I just think it's phenomenal when we see the two seminaries and at all avenues and all intersections working so well together. Obviously, they want the students for their seminaries, but they're very like-minded, so it's great to see. Same thing with the Concordia universities as well. Whenever I'm working with the Concordia presidents, just a very cordial and evangelical relationship among them. So that's just great to see. Just continuing where we left off, we want to just talk a little bit about what are some real practical things that you can do in encouraging both youth and adults. I've often focused on youth in this presentation, but we are working on a number of second career, when I say adult, second career recruitment as well. Matter of fact, one of the things that's not in this slide show here is we have employed a company marketing communications firm in St. Louis to work with Set Apart to Serve. At any given time, there's like 4 to 6 people, full-time people in marketing communications expertise that are working with us. We went, two people from there and myself went to both seminaries with the second career students. The seminaries lined up about a dozen second career MDiv students and their wives. And we journeyed with them, or asked them, what is your journey? What was your journey in getting from the time you considered, just started thinking about being a pastor, to really contemplating about it, to making the decision, to enrolling in the seminary? the move to the seminary, and then your life at the seminary. What were the barriers in all those areas? Who did you talk to that most helped you during that time? Just a number of questions for each of those times. We had the men first. We did this at both seminaries, by the way, obviously at different times. But we had the men first, then we fed their whole family pizza, and then we kept the wives. And boy, we learned a lot from the wives, and I mean that seriously. Just the things that we weren't together as a church or as seminaries thinking about what the wife was all going through during that whole journey. And just now, we are putting together some resources called journey maps that will be going to congregations that are available congregations, so that when you have a man in your congregation that's considering second career pastor, that we can help them see what other people have gone through, so hopefully it makes the whole process and journey easier. The seminaries learned a lot too, because one of the criticisms, and the seminaries wanted to learn. They wanted to see where did we fall, where are we falling short. And what they were finding out is they were kind of segmented, that a wife would call the seminary for this question. Then they had to call another department to ask this question. The man would have to call another department. And so the seminaries both then realized we got to make this a one-stop shop so that we don't make this a frustrating experience for the second career. We're talking about making doing the same thing for first career, especially the MDivs. Funding is always an issue. That's like an $80,000 project, just that journey mapping and putting it together and such. And so we're kind of looking at the funds, not this year, maybe, but the next year. Anyway, just the work that we're doing together and the second career. But I want to go back to our youth for a little bit. In from Paul to Timothy, talking about Timothy being a pastor now in the church, and how Paul commends grandma and mother about how they raised him in the faith and how important that is. The fact that today and yesterday, you notice how many times we said the Lord's Prayer and how many times we said the Apostles' Creed. How wonderful that is for our children, Sunday after Sunday, to say the same thing over and over, whether it be the commandments, the creed, Lord have mercy, the Sanctus, the Agnus Dei, whatever it is. I can just tell you from my own experience, I know you all have your own story, but my 7-year-old grandson wants to be a vet, but I want him to be a pastor, and he's belting out, this is the feast at home, and he knows every stanza. And why? Because his congregation does that over and over, Sunday after Sunday. And is that so, so that's kind of cute, right? No, it's not. That's going to be a part of him and his life. No matter what he encounters in life, whether he's a vet or a pastor or married or a miscarriage in life, death of a parent, all of that, Agnus Dei and Lord have mercy and Kyrie, all that is a part of him and all of our children, obviously. So that's what Paul is really kind of commending here. Not so much the liturgy, but certainly the scriptures here. How he grew up in the scriptures with his mom and his grandmother, and that certainly was instrumental then in Timothy being a pastor. Well, we have surveyed parents. In fact, we're right in the middle of doing some one-on-one conversations with parents. Matter of fact, district presidents have given us names of parents, and then we ask the parents if we can have time with them one-on-one. It's usually a Zoom call. And they've been giving us some little tidbits, not tidbits, but giving some good information. Some of it is kind of negative, saying I don't want my child to be a church worker. But then we kind of walk through that a little bit and talk to them about that. The other thing that we were really after is, what are you doing as a parent, especially a parent of now a current church worker? What did you do in raising that that man or that woman for any of the 8 vocations for church work. And these are some of the things. Baptism to the parent is extremely important. Well, we're not going to argue with that, right? Being baptized as an infant, becoming a child of God, being united to Christ, get through water and the Word, and then living out that baptism and helping that child know their baptism day after day, and evening prayers, morning prayers, and crisis in life, whatever it is. Immersing their children in the Word, and this is like no surprise, but when we present this into many varied audiences, it's like, oh yeah, we should know that, or that really is important, so we're going to really focus on that all the more. But immersing our children in the Word, including at home, and helping our parents who maybe have not had family devotions, just try it. I mean, just do it. And if you fail for a while, just start over again. Give them some resources, like the catechism, or but read the Bible stories, the upcoming gospel reading, praying over that. It can be as simple as that. Sometimes moms and dads are kind of fearful. What do I do? What do I say to my child? Kindly instruct your children in their baptismal faith, not just baptism, but what that means, that life immersed in Christ. I was a district president for a while, and the things in North Dakota, and the things that were often troublesome for our church workers sometimes was just their baptismal life, and not realizing how they were coming on to people and coming across to people. And so how important it is at very little age to teach them the fruits of the Spirit. Not only the words, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and that, but what does that mean for their lives as they mature, and virtue and integrity, and what does a sanctified life mean, and what is manhood as a boy grows into a man, and womanhood, and manners and such. Immersing our children in Lutheran doctrine. You're saying you're preaching to the choir, but go home and preach it to your choir. Immerse your children in Lutheran doctrine and the catechism. Peter Bender from Sussex, Wisconsin, just taught me the phrase, learn by heart. Not to memorize, but we learn that catechism by heart, that it becomes a part of us. And it's not like saying, Johnny, go to your room and learn the second commandment. It's meaning, come back out and when you know it. But it's just as a parent saying it over and over with them. Make it a song, make it a routine, make it a game, and they just begin, I'm not saying it's always got to be a game, but it just becomes a part of them. The Book of Concord, helping them defend the faith. My children grew up when they were in high school. There was no Lutheran high school. They grew up in a Lutheran grade school in Bismarck, North Dakota. But high school, they were challenged in their faith. Not drastically, but I think in today's world, our children are getting challenged more and more than even my children were many years ago. And how do we help our children speak for the faith? Giving your children a love of learning from very little on, and this is something you can take home. So I know you know this, but take it home and share it with your congregation and your conversations over coffee or at a Bible class. Learning to be a church worker is not easy work. Pastor, learning Greek and Hebrew and church history and teachers, learning how to teach and forget all the words I'm looking for, but it's not easy. You got to go through a bachelor's degree, you got to go through a master's degree, and so from little on, teaching them, reading to them as children, and giving them great literature to read, and helping them to have inquisitive minds and a good study ethic. Now you may say, what role does this have to do with growing a church worker? But this is maturing a child in a holistic understanding of who he is and who she is as she grows and becomes. Instructing your children in the stewardship of the body and the mind, from little on, how we take care of our bodies, the temple of the Holy Spirit, so that with a healthy body we can best share the gospel. Teaching your children to appreciate and love for the congregation and school. I talked about this a little bit more, but I'll start it now. One thing that that parents have often told us too, and actually church workers, is little Johnny going to want to be a pastor if mom and dad go home and criticize the pastor? Well, no, they're not. And so it's showing our children how we care for our pastor and our teachers and our church workers. Then they're going to have a much better understanding and desire to become one of those, right? And our synod as well, how easy it is to bash our synod, especially when we don't agree with something here or there, but we've got a fantastic synod. We've got two world-renowned seminaries. ATS, the Accrediting Association, says we've got two of the strongest seminaries in the entire world. Church bodies are coming to our seminaries to learn at our seminaries. We've got a publishing house. We've got worker wellness, and we've got a healthcare system. We've got Concordia universities, and most of all, we've got well-educated pastors, the highest office in the land, as Luther says, because you carry and preach and teach the Word of God. And so we have that positive, at least we give that positive face to our children to help them understand we're a part of something, a life together that's really good. And when we do have a disagreement, as President Harrison said earlier, you kind of checked out of my presentation, although you heard it in Montana. If you have a problem with your pastor, go to him one-on-one and work it out there, not in front of our little children, right? And again, I'm telling you as a pastor, it's like, don't tell us, tell our congregation, but we're working on that. Show your children how to care and for respect their church workers. I already said that. And I love this. If you listen to the St. Louis, the Fort Wayne call service, Dr. Bruss at the very end of the service said this: "Men, don't be stingy with the gifts that the Lord has given you. The Lord has gifted you in significant ways. Come to the seminary." Now he's speaking over the internet, right? It's being broadcast out. "And families, do not hold back your sons, but help them to see what a blessing it is to serve in the ordained ministry of word and sacrament." One of the things that we've been saying, I don't know if you've been catching it, but we've been talking about all the church work vocations as being sacred, joyful, and honorable. About raising those vocations back up, not as something that we can step on or walk over or slander, but these are significant offices and positions and vocations that preach, teach, share, witness the very Word of God. So I thought that was wonderful, what Russ says is, don't hold your sons back. Send them to the seminary. Excuse me. All right. What pastors, commission workers, parents, grandparents, laypersons can say, and again, we've learned this from our research, from going out and talking to congregations, schools, district presidents, circuit visitors, and so on. What do you want to be when you grow up? That's an easy in. You've got Johnny as an acolyte that Sunday, and he's 11 years old, whatever he is, and the pastor, he's really respecting you. He thinks you're really something big. You know that you're important as a listener, but it's good that he's got this attitude about the office, right? And for you to say, "Hey, Johnny, what do you want to be when you grow up?" If he says engineer, I'll say, that's a great thing. Have you ever considered being a pastor? Just those ins. I see you like being at church and singing in church and being in Sunday school. Well, then there's the lead-in. We often get asked, how do you identify if a man or a boy or girl, if you want to have that conversation to be for them to consider church work? Well, they love being in church. They love being in divine service. They have a love for the Word. They like being in Bible study. They're inquisitive about the Word. They love serving in the church. They like being in the youth group. They like being in the choir, and just all those things. And those are the sons and daughters that we really want to have a conversation with, because they already love the church. Have you ever thought about being a pastor or a teacher or deaconess? You're really good with children. I think you'd be a great teacher. Look at the Sunday school helpers, the teenagers who are helping in Sunday school. That's an easy in just to talk to them about considering church work. You seem to take being an acolyte seriously. You should think about being a pastor. A number of congregations, Ben Wall's congregation, I know, does this as well. It's more than just lighting candles, but it's teaching them, having them think about church work vocation and the holiness and sacredness of the space of worship. It's an education more than just lighting a candle. I'd like to pay your way to the youth gathering or Vocatio or Christ Academy or higher things. We've got people in your congregation who could actually do this. There are people who can afford that, not everyone, but or go to them and say, hey, we got we got a boy and a girl who really love your Vocatio and it costs this much money. I don't know what it is. By the way, the Vocatio and the Christ Academies are full. They can't take anyone else, any more students this year or last year or the year before, the last 3 years. Christ Academy as well. Higher things, 2 of them are absolutely full, and the Massachusetts one is nearly full. That's just saying what we together are doing in starting to raise up the awareness in our children. Job shadowing. There was a pastor in the Northwest District. He was in one of our pilot projects, our original pilot projects, and he said, I do a job shadowing. I've got 2 young men who are kind of interested in the ministry. They're high schoolers. And he said, I sit down with them and say, hey, do you want to see what I do? And I start preparing a sermon. And he shows them the Greek, and they're all enthralled because this looks like great to them. And he said, hey, would you go on a hospital visit with me? And just job shadowing and talking about them, the ministry. We've got that resource on our website, by the way. What do you think about the sermon today? Would you ever see yourself as a pastor? A lot of you probably with your confirmation students, they have to do worship outlines. Rather than just turning them in once in a while, ask them. Just sit down and have a conversation. What do you think of that? Where did you hear Jesus in my sermon today? That's what a pastor does. Would you ever like to be a pastor? It's just as easy as that. By the way, when we first started Set Apart to Serve, and we sent out our initial research, church workers told us we don't know what to say, and we don't know how to have conversations with our youth. So if this is sounding elementary to you, I'm sorry. But to a lot of church workers, this is what they've asked for, and we've got all of our resources have this, not only this kind of information, but a number of these. I'd like to take our youth to a Concordia University for a field trip. I know our Concordia universities aren't maybe 10 miles away. By the way, that's another block for our millennials and our Gen Zs. They don't want to move away from home. And I think as parents, you can disagree with me, but when I was a parent as well, I still am with the move that are grown. I wanted my children to move away to grow up and to mature and to kind of be on their own. And I think we should encourage our children as much as we love them and care for them and would love for them to stay home in our community. Going to a Concordia isn't the worst thing in the world, even if it's 300 miles away or 1,000 miles away. And take them to a Concordia if you can. If you're going on vacation, you're going by Irvine, well, that's a beautiful campus. Once you walk onto that campus, you want to attend it. And actually, all of our campuses are like that. once we get our students on the campus, then we almost, it's not like we're trying to get them, but they're really, really interested. Or I see you love singing in church and in the choir. Did you know that you become a full-time church musician? You know, a director of parish music, that's a real full-time vocation in Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. I think you should pray about being a pastor, Timmy. And you know what? We've had boy after boy after boy. Vice President Scott Murray, if you know him or not, he's got a story where he had an acolyte, and he just said a couple times to him, I think you should consider being a pastor. And it was like, you know, did it penetrate? Did it go in one ear and out the other? Or what happened? And you know what? He's entered the ministry now. Those words from a pastor meant so much that Tim here, I don't know what his name is, really thought about. I think you're great in youth group. Have you ever considered being a DCE? Doesn't mean DCE, I'm just throwing out examples. But Youth League is part of the National Youth Group, you know, and they learn to be leaders in their youth group. Well, we get them in St. Louis. Youth League meets, the leaders meet every year in St. Louis. There's about 100 of them. And I presented them, I think it was on the video earlier. They're very interested in being church leaders. And so are the Vocatio and Grace Academy. As a matter of fact, that's why they go there, to consider if they really want to be church work or not. Mary, I see your daughter being a deaconess. With learning Spanish, she might be a great missionary in Latin America. And also, you know somebody who's learning Spanish, and you go to the parent. By the way, it's not bad to have a conversation with the parent. Mom and Dad, can I talk to your daughter about being a deaconess? Do you mind if I have that conversation? I probably have a conversation anyway, because forgiveness later if they don't believe it. John, I think your son would be a great pastor. Do you mind if I talk to him about it? All sorts of things. Boys, I'd like to take you on a hospital visit with me. Are you interested? Take them out for ice cream afterward. And they would love that. I would consider not doing it just with one in the world today. Take a couple with you at a time. Do you see how Peter talked to Cornelius about Jesus? Or talking about in the book of Acts, right? How would you like to tell others about Jesus as a pastor or as a DCO, Director of Christian Outreach? Sam, the way you learn your catechism so easily, have you ever thought about being a pastor? President Harrison talked about how he can read something and it sticks to him. I don't have that gift. But when we see a young man or a young woman kind of having that kind of gift and they're just learning their catechism and just sucking it up, that's the person we want to talk to about considering church work. Let's just talk about how much it costs. If you think it costs too much to be a church worker today, I want you to take that thought out of your mind. It used to be that way, and we really did have to deal with church work debt. And I'm sorry that you and I had to pay our debts, right? And $108.76 I paid every month when I got out of the seminary. I still remember the amount, right? So you probably can too, for a number of years. Together, set apart to serve, and just on their own initiative, the Concordia universities are working really, really hard at bringing the costs down. For instance, Concordia St. Paul, did you know that there is no tuition for pre-seminary and pre-deaconess, and $6,000 max per year for all the other church work vocations, like Lutheran school teacher, DCE, and so on. So you still pay room and board, but all education costs something, right? And so it's gonna cost something, whether you're going to be an engineer or whatever it is. Concordia Chicago just announced their $5,000 max per year tuition for church work students. CSL and Fort Wayne Seminary, there's no tuition for the residential routes. It's not free tuition. Someone's paying for it. donors are paying for it. People who have a love for the ministry, people who have the means and gifts to be able to give to the seminary so that these kinds of tuition gifts can be given. The two seminaries I know are also working on room and board, and that's a lot of money when you're talking about, and also Seward is trying to talk about what kinds of gifts they can offer. By the way, however, Seward has a $100,000 guarantee tuition assistance for church work students over 4 years, so it's like $25,000 per year. So they all have kind of their own formula. That website, you don't have to remember it, you just go to Seminary Serve. We've got a breakdown of every Concordia University and every church work program of what the tuition is, and it's current as of today. Every time a new statistic comes in, we change it just like that. What else can a congregation do? This just appeared on our website. You have evangelism committees and education committees, and I know you're just dying to look for another committee, right? But maybe you could put something together. But I would really encourage your congregation to have a focus on church work formation and recruitment. And this little green resource here, it's multi-page. It even gives you a template of what you can be discussing in a committee meeting, how to look for committee members, and I try to think of everything that you would need to make it as easy as possible. Or maybe you want to meld it with your board of elders, or meld it with your board of education. But it's got to happen at the congregational level. We also have a document like this, I think it's blue, I can't remember now, for districts. For a district committee. Matter of fact, we're working with about a half a dozen districts right now in testing this resource for districts, for a district to have a set apart to serve committee or task force. The problem is every district calls it something else, so we have to have a whole page of what you can call it: task force, committee, working group, whatever else it is. Started a fund for church work tuition assistance. Little old Bethlehem, North Dakota, Upham, North Dakota, where I was married to my wife. They just started a fund. They have a couple of students. They're in rural North Dakota, and they have a couple of church work students. They all decided just now they're going to give every church work student from their congregation $5,000 every year. And by the way, the Concordia is stacked now, so it's not like we guarantee $5,000, but if your congregation gives you $5,000, then we don't give you $5,000. That's not the way it works anymore. It's stacked. So a congregation giving is in addition to what the Concordias are giving already. Invite a Concordia University to come to you, or to your district, or to your circuit. Just remind me what time I'm done.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. So he said I have another hour and 10 minutes. So. What about another thing you can do? I kind of shared this earlier. We have a resource. Kevin Arnbrough, some of you know that name or not. He used to work for Synod, now he works for the seminary. Him and I wrote this curriculum along with Concordia Publishing House. And it's got 4 topics. What is the church? And basically it's a study of the church as Christ-centered, built on word and sacrament, justification as the center and all that. Number 2, who are our LCMS church workers, like those 8 vocations? So there's a whole study on that. How do we care for our church workers? Even down to the preschool level, we have a unit of how we care for our church workers at their level, right? And then a culture of church work. How do we build a culture of church work formation and recruitment in our congregation? We wrote it age-specific for, you see there at the top, early childhood, grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, and adult. I told you earlier, LCEF gave $200,000. Each of the Concordias gave $6,000, because that's all I needed for this curriculum. And LCEF, their money, and Concordia said, we will give this money to go toward this curriculum on one condition. It's given away for free. This money pays for it for free to all of our Lutheran schools and our congregations. But first, we open it up to the schools. To this day, you can go on CPH and order all the resources, the booklets you need, or 10 booklets for age 5 and 6 or whatever it is, and they will send it to you for free. Now, 200,000 copies kits were printed first. When the physical kits run out, then it'll be downloadable for free, because we don't have another $250,000 for this curriculum. But it still will be at no cost, except you'll have to print it if you want. We are, right now, we're piloting with about a half a dozen school principals across the synod. By the way, when we do a pilot, we look at the entire synod. We have all the districts represented in what we do. We have large congregations, small congregations, ethnic congregations, rural congregations, urban congregations. We try just to get the whole healthy mix. So this is very good for Lutheran schools, but it's also very, very good for Sunday school, or for vacation Bible school, or at least a supplement it for your Sunday school, vacation Bible school, or the pastor, Bible class. It might be a little awkward for him to give the unit on caring for church workers because it's about him. So maybe somebody else can help out with that particular unit. I don't know. It's all written. It's been under doctrinal review. It's been edited by everyone and his grandmother. So we hope that it's a resource that is acceptable and happy for you. Sorry, the voice is kind of going. We have over 80 short videos. We often hear sometimes, if only you had some videos we could show. And said, wow, do you know we do? We have about 80 of them. Just go to our website. By the way, Synod is putting out brand new, they're revamping their entire website. So I know when you go on it now, it's like going to Hades to try to find something, right? But they're putting out a brand new website, and it's supposed to be just like the most spectacular thing in the world. We'll see. But in July, I understand it's coming out. But even now, I do think if you Google "set apart to serve," the first thing on your search bar will be LCMS "set apart to serve." And you can easily find these videos. Some of them are 30 seconds long, like at the beginning of a Bible class or at the beginning of a youth group. Some are 5 minutes long, 3 minutes long. Some are 10 minutes, but not too much, not more than that, because we can't keep our children's attention beyond that. Praying, obviously. You can listen to all the KFU broadcasts. You might know a lot of people who have been our guests on KFUO. Place the 8 vocations booklet in your narthex or hand it out. This 8 vocations booklet is on the website if you want to print it. If you don't ask for 7,000 copies, you can email us and we'll send you a couple dozen copies for your narthex, and so that you can have it for your congregation. Take care of your pastors and your church workers. Talking to the laity here. Really look at their salary and their benefits. The expectations you have for them, the boundaries you have for them, the time off, continuing education. Be respectful of their family and care for them. Help them to buy books and resources for their work. You've probably heard this before, but this is so important in church work recruitment. We take care of our church workers down the road. Seeing I just have a few to something else. We get this a lot, and I understand this. We have a really small congregation. We hardly have any children in our congregation. What can we do? So here's a few things you can do. Praying is not an empty it is so important. Send out your workers. Pray privately in your home. Now, in the 6-month space, and then we'll be putting out resources of just if you have or a 5-minute talk. To be on it, to help other congregations. It's not just about, your local congregation, it's about the greater church, right? Support the seminaries and church work programs. According to my grandma, they don't always have a lot of money, but sometimes they do. And a lot of grandparents, I asked this of like Ocasio Christ Academy, who helps pay for your tuition? I guess it's they don't pay the whole bill, but they often help with it. So that's a possibility too. Niece or nephew could be a church worker. Talk to them about it. To set apart to serve, and again, I'm not. That's not like a bait switch. But my budget for set apart to serve next year. And I have the. But it does cost money to do this, but boy, if we can develop this culture and saturate it into every congregation, that would just be wonderful. So when we die perpetually, we're continually forming and recruiting church workers. Finally, there's some resources and messaging. If you want to learn more, go read your Lutheran Witness. Read it even without the set apart to serve. It's a fantastic journal. The Reporter, KFUO Radio, as I said earlier. We're working with district ed execs. I already said a lot of that stuff. And finally, there's a QR code. You take a picture of that from your phone and get onto our website. Or you can just Google set apart to serve and you'll easily find it. Let's pray to the Lord of the harvest that we can develop this culture of church formation and recruitment from conception all the way through adult. The Lord is good. He will provide. The workers, but He works through means and He works through us. So blessings on your district and the synod as we embark on this work. Thank you.